So let me spin you a bit of a yarn. Over the holidays, I became aware of the phenomenon known as lostwave. Now, lostwave is music that is known, but the artist behind it, the story behind it, is not known. This is different from lost media, where the media is known about, but there's no surviving example of it. So, for example, the majority of silent films are considered lost. This means not only lost to the internet, but lost to film archivists as well. We know that they existed, what year they came out, who directed it, who starred in it, what critical reviews were, but we can't locate a single copy. There's a number of reasons for that, but that's besides the point of this video. Now, lostwave can probably be best understood by its most prominent example, also referred to as the most mysterious song on the internet. So this is a song that was recorded off of German radio in the mid-80s, and nobody knows what it is, who made it, how it ended up on the radio, anything like that. It's a decent guitar-driven cold wave track. It's really not all that special, but what makes this so interesting is how many people have been searching for what this song really is, how long the search has been going on for, and how few leads have actually turned up. If you're interested in finding out more about it, Wang has a multi-part series on the entire saga that you can check out. There's a subreddit dedicated to lostwave that I subscribed to after finding out about the phenomenon. I was on there one day just browsing, seeing if I could identify anything, which I couldn't. But somebody posted a link to a funk rock song asking if anybody knew what it was. And in the comments, somebody else posted a link to a Discogs page of a 7-inch single saying, yeah, perhaps it could be this song. There's no rip of it online, so we don't know what it sounds like, but the era might fit, the genre might fit, perhaps this is it. So I saw that the band was from Germany, where I live. And I don't know why, but on a whim, I went on eBay, searched it up, and actually found somebody selling a copy. This got me really excited about the mystery. What's on this record? Is it the song being looked for? I could potentially buy this record and solve the mystery. All of this made me realize that the internet isn't quite the comprehensive archive that it oftentimes seems to be. I mean, I knew there were music blogs and YouTube channels dedicated to posting obscure music, but it never really struck me how important this kind of preservation is. A cultural artifact, like a record, is representative of a time, a place, a group of people. Just because it wasn't popular in its time doesn't mean that it's not worthy of our consideration. I mean, there are plenty of examples throughout history of artists that weren't appreciated until well after their time. The only thing that's preventing these records from being lostwave is that nobody's looking for them. So with this in mind, I decided to start this series, Unearthing Obscurity. Here I will be presenting the online premiere of various music that I discover. Some will be hidden gems, and others will certainly have been better left buried. I'll play an excerpt of a few songs, and then the full songs will be broken off into a separate channel for archival or preservation purposes. So, let's begin with the record that started it all, Thee Cherokee Chiefs. First of all, let's take a look at what we got. I really like this. I like this sort of Magic 8-Ball fisheye shot of the band in a graveyard, very contrasty images in wintertime. It's really dark and it reminds me of kind of metal photography or aesthetics. And the font for the band name, it's almost a bit similar to Comic Sans, but I checked, it's not. But I think it looks cool. I like it. Regarding the band name and the instead of the, I didn't know this before, but apparently the is just sort of a thing in the garage rock scene. It started all the way back in the 60s. So when you see this band name, you can already situate them within a genre. So as we can see on the flip side, No Friend of Mine, Hurtin Kind are both covers. Livin on the Passing Lane is the original song. We don't get that much information about the band, except that there are 5 members and there are either their nicknames or just first names. But we do get a contact address, and we'll check that out later. What's nice here is that we get the recorded on date. Usually you would see the date that the record was put out. On some of these other obscure records that I found, you don't even get any sort of date on it at all. So it's nice to at least be able to place it in an era without having to guess. And as you can see, this is limited to 300 copies. On first glance, it doesn't look like it's actually numbered. It looks like it's left blank. But if you hold it in the right light, you can see that they wrote the number just with a ballpoint pen. So this is number 157 out of 300. So taking the record out, we see that it's not for sale, for promotion only. And the one thing that I ask myself about this is if it was really just for promotional purposes, just for passing out at shows or whatever, why didn't they just make a cassette? Why did they go through the trouble of pressing a record? Is it because it's cooler or it's somehow more legitimate? So as we can see on the record, there is a lot of space on the A side. I'm not quite sure why they didn't throw another song on there. Another song would have easily fit. On the B side, it's full, as you would kind of expect to see, but the A side, there's a long runoff. And if we look in the runoff, we can see that it's etched with TCC1A on the A side and B on the B side. Makes sense. And then there's like a name or something. I'm not quite sure. I can't make it out. But it looks like maybe G. Pamler or something like that. And on the A side, what you can see is that they credit No Friend of Mine to the Swamp Rats, who didn't do the original version of the song. And Hurtin Kind, they just credit to Hurtin Kind. So I guess in both of these cases, they didn't know who did the original songs. On the B side, we get this really, really cool logo, the tambourine with, the band name in it. I really like it. I love the aesthetics of all of this, the whole package, how it comes together. So what I'm going to do is play you the first song and the last song to begin with, followed by the second song. The reason why I'm doing that is because the first and last song are covers, as I said, and the last song is the one original song, and in my opinion, the most interesting. So let's take a listen.
Yeah, my brother just gonna give it up just to fool my
I really like this record. The first and last song, they're kind of standard 60s garage rock style, maybe punked up a bit, a bit faster than you would normally hear it. But that second song, the original one, is really interesting. I'm not sure why they didn't include another original track on this. I mean, they had the space for it. Maybe they didn't have the songs for it. The band is tight, but they play it loose. And I think part of that is helped by the singer, who isn't exactly always on tempo. It's really evocative of that 60s era of garage rock where they were just trying stuff and seeing what would happen. They're cutting open their amplifiers and seeing what type of distortion would come out. And it feels really genuine. I like this album a lot. So let's see what we can find out. No Friend of Mine is not originally by the Swamp Rats, but obviously this band knew it from the Swamp Rats, which is why they credited them. The song was originally released in 1967 by the Sparkles. The funny thing is that the Cherokee Chiefs version I think sounds more similar to the original Sparkles version than the version they credit from the Swamp Rats. The Swamp Rats version doesn't have an organ in it, but the Sparkles version does. The Cherokee Chiefs version sounds kind of just like a sped up version of the Sparkles. Now, Hurtin Kind was originally recorded in 1965 by the Tulu Babies. A cover version of Hurtin Kind was recorded in 1967 by the Bittersweets, and that's a really interesting version of the song as well. The Cherokee Chiefs version sounds most similar to the original Tulu Babies one, I would say, just sped up, similar to how they approached No Friend of Mine. Now, the Tulu Babies only released 2 singles in the mid-60s, but they did go through some lineup changes and a name change and released several more singles throughout the 60s under the name the Baskerville Hounds. One thing that should be apparent though is that they're really digging deep into the old US 60s garage rock songbook. These are not common songs that they're covering. These are really much more obscure ones. So I would be really interested to know how they found out about these songs, how they learned them. As you can see, they didn't even know who originally did Hurtin Kind. They didn't even know how to credit it. So how did they learn it? Let's talk about track listing or sequencing for a minute. I know it's kind of weird to think about sequencing when there's only 3 songs, but I think as soon as you have more than just an A-side and a B-side, it's something you have to take into consideration. I know I played the songs out of order for you in this video, but I think if you go and listen to the songs in the proper order, sandwiching this slower, more psychedelic song in between the faster, kind of punkier songs is exactly right in my opinion. One thing to note about the title of Livin on the Passing Lane is that I don't think it's a typo. I think it's just a bad translation. In English, you can say living in the passing lane or life in the fast lane or something like that. The expression is the same in German. But in German, Leben auf der Überholspur, the preposition auf would usually be translated as on. As we can see by the Discogs page, J&J Productions, none of these recordings are related. They're from different countries, different styles of music. I guess J&J maybe was Janusz, the guitar player, and maybe the person that was behind the soundboard or something like that. But I really think this is just sort of a random name. So since we have an address on here, we can go onto Google Maps and see where the band was from. And we see that they were from the Bamberg area. One thing that I know about Bamberg is that there was a US Army base there for a long time. So perhaps this is where this US garage rock influence came from. Although it is worth mentioning that at this period of time, garage rock was going through a bit of a revival. The most prominent of these garage rock revival bands, I would say, would be the Fuzztones, who released their debut album in 1985, 1 year before this was recorded. But it also makes me wonder if there was some kind of local garage rock scene, or if it was really just this band. One thing that's interesting to see is this band did have one compilation appearance, and it was on a cassette that was given away with a fanzine. And yes, the name of the fanzine does translate to the Cosmic Penis. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any rip of this cassette, nor could I find any copy available for sale. But I definitely will be keeping an eye out because I would love to see what these other songs sound like. We just have one song that's untitled, but an instrumental, and another song that's untitled. So I wonder if the non-instrumental is Livin' on the Passing Lane, or if it's a new song entirely. But I think that's about as much as I can dig up about this band and the music and location-based connections. If you have any insights, please share. It would be very interesting to find out more. So that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you enjoyed the Cherokee Chiefs. If you want to check out the full songs, head over to that second channel I mentioned. The link is in the description. And I'll see you next time.